Good afternoon and welcome to the March QB Talks webinar, What's New with QBO? I am your host, Gary DeHart. I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant, and I'm pleased to be here with Liz Scott, our speaker, whom I will introduce. Actually, I will let her introduce herself after I go over a few housekeeping items and say thanks to our sponsor. So a couple of housekeeping items. We have, this year, we turned QB Talks into a CPE eligible event. So if you need the CPE, you must be present for 50 minutes, 50 minutes, pretty much the duration of the session, and you must participate in at least 3 of the poll questions. I think we have a total of 5. One of the poll questions has 3 parts. That counts as 1 question. So you do these 2 things, 50 minutes, 3 poll questions, then we'll send you an email after this event with the link to a short survey. Complete the survey and we'll email you the certificate that you use to register for this webinar. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down in the Q&A panel. And I know Liz likes the interaction, so put those in there and she addresses them pretty quickly. You'll also receive a link to the replay of this event, along with a link to a copy of the slide deck in an email tomorrow. But after I turn this over to Liz, I will also put a link to our YouTube, which is where this replay will sit. And I will also put a copy of the slide deck in the chat. So both of those will go into the chat as well. But before I turn it over to Liz, I would like to say thank you to our sponsor. Our series sponsor is Rewind. Rewind Backups protects the critical data which runs your and your clients' businesses. Online accounting software products don't automatically save your transactions and files if they're deleted. So Rewind Backups is the undo button for your online accounting software, automatically saving and restoring the latest version of your books. Rewind Backups are available for QuickBooks Online, Shopify, Shopify Plus, GitHub, Trello, Microsoft 365, and Big Commerce. They have a dozen other platforms currently in beta, probably even more than that since this was written. So Liz, that is all I have. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you. And, oh, no, that's not true. I have a poll question before we turn it over to you. That's why Liz is here, to keep me honest. So here we go. And again, like I said, this is just a real quick, actually it's 4 questions around Rewind, our sponsor. Just if you would like to hear from them. Actually, we'll give you that question later at the end. Sorry. So there's just a couple asking about your software. Have you ever experienced data loss? And what's the other question here? Do you have any security plans or protocols in place? I would imagine everyone should have their WISP. Are you interested in learning more about Rewind? So we'll just leave this open for about 30 seconds, and then we will close this out and turn it over to Liz and let her wow us with the latest updates on QBO. So Liz, if you want to go ahead and hit up your bio while we finish this out, I'll just close this poll in about 5 seconds, and then you can just keep rolling.
Sure, great. So I can introduce myself. My name is Liz Scott, and many of you are friends, so hello. What we are going to be going through today is everything that I enjoy. So QuickBooks Online updates. I like being able to be in the know, what's happening, share with my community. And there's lots of things that we're going to be covering. So it's going to be fun. Of course, I love the interaction like Gary said. So if you've got questions, every once in a while, I come over into chat and I try to answer those and sometimes even share those live. Because if you've got the question, chances are somebody else does as well. And I see that the poll is now closed. So Gary, is that my okay to keep on moving?
Keep on moving.
All right, thanks. So we're going to go through a couple of different key areas. We're going to have the QuickBooks Online updates that we're going to go through, QuickBooks Online Accountant. So for us pro advisors, what's new in our realm, and then also the ecosystem. So there's a couple of different adds to features, and then also ProAdvisor Training has been updated. So a couple new enhancements for training. I just want to call out what they are so that way you're aware. But let's move over to QuickBooks Online updates first. And the place I'm going to begin is negative deposits. So every single update that we get is usually because there's been some request for it. I think about This negative deposits feature is going to be for use cases if you are using some type of point of sale, if you've got a restaurant, if you've got e-commerce. And so the need for being able to go and add negative deposits is maybe because you have negative sales for that day. And the way that that can result is, here's an example of a Shopify finance summary. And, you know, if I've got a client who they've got Shopify account and they have so many sales for this day of $135, but then they had more returns than they had sales, that's going to result in a negative deposit. There's lots of different ways to handle negative deposits, but now we have an additional negative deposit transaction functionality in QuickBooks. I'm going to take you through maybe what some of you do as traditional, and that would be going over into QuickBooks and maybe creating a journal entry to take all of the data that comes off of that financial summary and then pull it into QuickBooks. But if I go back over to this financial summary, you can see I've got multiple different lines here. And if you're somebody who wants to be able to take this summary and post it over into QuickBooks, then you're going to want to still continue some of these traditional routes, which would be to either create this journal entry of the sales in that channel, and then that channel's refunds minus any taxes that are going to be refunded, and then also discounts. And then you're going to have this result of a negative deposit. So this is one way that's pretty traditional. There are some of you out there who are going to create a sales receipt. And with that sales receipt, same thing, you're just parking in that you've got negative activity and you've got a $0 sales receipt. This new method isn't going to generate as much information on a report. So that's why I want to show you these two first traditional methods for creating a summary of the sales channel activity, because here's where you would be able to look at your report. So I took my sales summary from, in this case, an e-commerce Shopify channel, and created that journal entry. And then here I can see all of that activity on my profit and loss. If you are somebody who wants to use this negative sales transaction, you're going to miss some of these details. And what I mean by that is, if you come over and you record a bank deposit that's negative, you don't have all of the lines accessible to you to post to these multiple different accounts like you would in either journal entry or a sales receipt. But nevertheless, this is a new functionality. And again, it's brought to you because there's these requests that have happened. So you can go over inside of the bank deposit screen and you can now create a negative deposit. And you can post to whatever account is appropriate. So maybe you've got a clearing account and you are recording your sales receipt or your journal entry some other way, but now you're just doing the clearing of that account to post to the bank account. You know, there's several different reasons why I can see somebody who might need this negative deposit screen, but instead of being dependent on a journal entry like previously or a sales receipt, now you can go straight to the bank deposit and you can post a negative deposit. I'm curious how many of you out there have needed to have a negative deposit. And if you don't mind sharing why, I think that would be interesting, because this is a new functionality. And if I pull in like where I might use it, it's going to go back to the restaurants, the point of sale, e-commerce. And so that's where my brain goes. But maybe you've got another scenario where you're needing to create a negative deposit, and that actually might help the rest of us to think about use cases for when you might want to have a negative deposit. I see that there's several different chats, answers over here, questions. Would this work with PayPal as well? So if you're going to create a bank deposit that would be negative for PayPal, where I've got my posting account chosen as my bank checking account, instead you could use your PayPal account. So yes, I would say The next one is, Marty, can't you just use the negative deposit screen to capture all of the same info on the journal entry? No, you actually can't pull in all of those various different lines. It doesn't allow for you to create this as a posting entry for sales. And this would not be the screen that I would use. But in that case, maybe you could go over, Marty, and you could put in all of the different lines. I would just think of a journal entry or a sales receipts being the place to do this. Tanya, what are you saying here? So have needed this for a long time for refunds that drive through from vendors. Okay, so here's a reason. So refunds from vendors needing to be able to put a negative deposit. Debbie, you're saying negative deposits when refunds for the day are greater than the sales. Yes. Okay, so lots of you coming up with similar responses and use cases. And we've got Murph, who is here as a special treat. And I see he's also answering some of these Q&A and even chat. So thank you, Murph. The other thing that's pretty cool about this feature is you can also tie into your bank feeds. So if you're somebody who utilizes bank feeds most often, if you were to create your deposit, so I'm going to come over here and I'll pull in my live QuickBooks. And so here is my deposit and my activity, and I post this transaction. So I save and close. If I come back over into my banking center, I will be able to see here's that deposit that was created. And although it's going to come through in your spent category column, sorry, you're going to be able to see that there is a match back to that deposit. So it was able to find that transaction, even though it was a negative deposit. So those are kind of some good to know about this functionality. I'm going to go back over to slides and then advance some more. And you do have copies of these slides. Gary was uploading it as a PDF inside of chat, and then also they'll be available later as Gary was sharing. The next thing I want to talk about is categorization history. This was a quick ad that happened. If you're like me, it might have slipped past you that you have this new functionality when you are in the bank feeds. So you have some slides that will take you through it. But again, I'm going to come over to QuickBooks and let's go into an actual demo file and I can show you what this looks like. So if you're somebody who has a lot of transactions and you're using the same vendor over and over, or it could be customer over and over again, and you want to look at how did you previously post that transaction, or maybe there's multiple team members and you want to be able to see how other team members have been posting. Maybe you're taking over the books or you have a new client and you want to see how did they code a transaction and you don't quite yet have rules set up. You can see this new categorization history, but it does require you to first have a vendor in place. So if I remove the vendor, I'm not able to see the categorization history. Makes sense, but just kind of one of those to call out. Oh, did I miss a polling question here?
No, that was a complete user error on my side. Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button. So, but we have a poll question here. How about this, Liz? What time period? There we go. What does it say? What time period does categorization history pull in data? I don't know if you went over that yet or not. Sorry.
I haven't yet, but that's okay because I think that everybody can go ahead and put in an answer here because really this is all about CPE credit. It doesn't have to be the correct answer. It's just our check-in.
Sorry to interrupt you there. That total user error on my part. We'll leave it open for about 10 more seconds. So if you do need the CPE, go ahead and participate in this poll, please.
And while you've got that up, I'll pull up the screen that shares what it looks like. So that way I can help people who are answering. So I've highlighted the answer. How's that?
All right, we'll go ahead and close this out. Do you want me to share the results?
Sure.
All right.
12 months. Okay. That, you know what that tells me is that 50% here already know about this feature and aware of what kind of dates range is pulling in. So for those of you who do know, then congratulations, you got that polling question correct. For those of you who this is something that slipped past you and you haven't quite yet got a chance to dive into the functionality, let me share here what you're able to do. So you can sort by most used or last used. If you've got a really long list, then maybe you would want to see most often used. And in this case, I can actually see I've got 2 different times that this transaction has been coded to different accounts. So I can actually see I've got 3 different transactions that are coded to repairs and maintenance, and I've got 1 transaction that's coded to cost of goods sold. So maybe what we've got is 3 different times that people went to Lowe's. It was because we were doing repairs to the office. And then maybe 1 time that we went to Lowe's, it was because we were doing a customer job. So those are going to be some scenarios where you'd want to look at the history. You've actually got it here available to you, and you can create a rule at the same time. So I would say that's kind of a bonus. If you're here and you're already looking at this transaction, then go ahead and create that rule. So then next time it's even easier as you're moving through. And it hates those little apostrophes, doesn't it? So I can pull in my rule, and now I wouldn't even have to come back and look at that previous history. I could pull in my bank rules and rely on those. So you've got slides that's going to also help you with going through each of those different steps. How do you see it? How do you view it? In this case, we're looking at square space and what's the history been for that particular vendor. Another area that some are seeing, but others are not yet, is the images that are being auto-fetched inside of your bank feeds. And this is going to work with not only checks, but it will also work for deposits if your bank has this functionality to export those images to QuickBooks. I can tell you it's odd what I'm seeing here. The banks that have this functionality are not the big banks that you would assume. So I'm not seeing this with Chase. I'm not seeing this with Wells Fargo. Instead, I'm seeing this with the little banks. I've got lots of clients that sometimes you can only see the check images, and then other times you can only see the deposits. And then I've got some cases where you can see both. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like. And then that gives you kind of an alert to look for it in your clients to see which of your clients has this fetching ability. So if I come over and I show you the experience, this first one that I'm showing is a check. So I've got a client here that I'm looking at, and what has been fetched automatically is the check image front and back. So you can see whenever I'm looking at a bank feed, if I click on that line, I can see more detail. And if there is an image, there's a drawer that pops up. And inside that drawer, you can choose to see, the front of that check. You can see the clearing of that check by looking at the back of the image. A couple of other things you could do is, if you don't want this image to be imported to QuickBooks, right there where it says receipts next to attachments, you can actually remove those. One of the other things I want to call out here is this is not a regular attachment. These are called bank attachments. So until you post them into QuickBooks, you're not going to be able to go over into our attachments area and see these transactions. Because these are bank attachments, they won't live inside of QuickBooks unless you go ahead and accept them. There's a couple of other things that I want to point out too with using these images. If there is a match, it's not going to bring in the images. Again, it's because these are bank images, bank attachments, and not our regular attachments. I don't know if that's going to be changed later on because this is new functionality, but right now it's just one of those things to be aware of. If you're adding a brand new transaction that has not been posted into QuickBooks, this is the experience you're going to get. You'll see the drawer, you can see both of the images. You can actually click on the zoom to full screen options, so that way you can see full screen, the front, and then you can even see the back of the image. So these are nice to have, and the same thing is true for deposits. So if you're somebody who maybe has a client and they handwrite their deposits, you never know what's part of that batch. If you're working with somebody who has a bank that can import these images, then you're going to have access to it. So huge win there. The only thing is, I would say again, if you're somebody who has invoices inside of QuickBooks and received payments, you're going to want to go ahead and create that batch. And so instead of being able to add all of these images, you're going to have to, what I've done, download them. This is kind of like a crazy workaround, but you can download them and you can put them in attachments, and then that way you can then attach them to that transaction. But if you match, you're not going to have these images. So just kind of an FYI, but you do have all images visible. So I can see my client's deposit slip. So I do have those details. And if I am adding that transaction, you can inside that transaction see all of those attachments. And here again, that does call them bank attachments, which are slightly different than our regular attachments. I'm going to come over here and look inside of chat to see if there are any questions, or over into Q&A. Can you share the best banks that work with this bank feed? So Jennifer, it's my local little banks that I'm seeing this. I think it's odd, but you know, a lot of those banks that I struggle with, sometimes getting an accountant only user because they're small, or I struggle with the bank feeds being able to update automatically without hitting that update button inside of QuickBooks Online. So it's kind of a random thing. Penelope, love your name. Did you say there was a way to keep the images inside of QuickBooks Online? So what would happen is, once you accept or once you add the bank feed with those images, yes, you can go over into your traditional attachments area of QuickBooks, and you would be able to see those bank images that are now considered attachments. So that is one way to do it. I think that, you know, my good friend Esther, one of the things that she was talking about was she's actually adding the bank feed transaction, and that way she's got all of the images that are inside of QuickBooks Online as attachments, and then she's removing the bank feed and then going back over to that transaction and then adding the attachments, so that way she's got them. I hope that this is just a temporary thing where whenever you match, you don't have the attachments, but otherwise, yes, they are visible. Christine, when will we see this new fit? So this is live. So if your bank or your client's bank has this, you'll be able to see it live. I've got probably about 12 different clients that do have this functionality. So it's definitely out there and live. Let's see. Any other questions? Keith, so you can only see the images when you don't have a match. Correct. Is this available in Canada? I don't know. That would be great. If somebody knows the answer to that, I would assume the answer is yes, because I think that both Megan and Esther are using this functionality. So I'm going to jump out on a limb there and I'm going to say yes, because both of them are Canadian ProAdvisors. And then Terry, you're saying, can we keep the images? So yes, Terry, if you're adding the transaction for the first time, those images are going to be added to QuickBooks as attachments. If you would prefer to have a match, Once you add that transaction, you will have all of those attachments available inside of QuickBooks. So what some of our ProAdvisor buddies are doing is then deleting that bank feed ad and then going back to the correct transaction that they want to match to, and then they're uploading all of those attachments. Kind of a weird back and forth. Yeah, I agree with you, Lee. You're saying, hey, it's such a challenge to go back and forth. I agree. It's nice to be able to see it inside of QuickBooks. I would imagine that this functionality is going to grow. Lots of people know that QuickBooks Online for their bank feeds is, awesome. So anything that can happen to benefit people who are using bank feeds, I would say is going to be an enhanced feature that's going to continue to have updates. I'm going to move over into QuickBooks Online Accountants. So some new things that are available just to us. And as accountants, we have this new rev share program. And some of you are already part of a network or a group that you are getting benefits, and you're already doing some type of commission. I know that there's lots of different programs that are out there, but what has changed is now anybody can have access to the rev share program that's a ProAdvisor. So if you have clients and you're adding them into QuickBooks Online through your QBOA, you are going to have a new experience where you're going to be able to see this rev share program. Let me pull up QuickBooks and let me show you where it's at. So you should be seeing my screen, and what I'm looking at is I'm inside of my QBOA. This is a demo QBOA. And if I go to say add clients, the thing that's new here is when you scroll down to billing options, you can actually choose to do rev share. So a couple of things here. If you're somebody who wants to continue to have the ProAdvisor discount, that means that you're going to keep track of how much the client is being charged. You're going to pass along your discount to your client sometimes, and that way you continue to have that price for the client forever. If you're somebody who does a markup, then you would want to, if you want to keep long-term getting some type of kickback, then you would do the ProAdvisor discount. If you're somebody who says, I don't want to keep track of my client billing, I don't want to keep track of what I'm being charged and what my client is reimbursing me for, then you could opt into the rev share. The thing to note here is that it is for the first 12 months of that subscription. So that's what's different here compared to the ProAdvisor discount. So if you want to keep it past the 12 months to be able to receive some type of commission or some type of revenue, then I would say continue with your ProAdvisor discount. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to keep track of billing, prices change in QuickBooks. I constantly, for my clients that I do, I do the pass through of my discount, and that's the way that I work with my clients. I don't actually increase the rates. It's not one of the ways that we make income, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that this is a big part of how they receive income, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a matter of what's your preference, how are you doing it. If you want to go and see that rev share information, this is a really good link. So you can see here, it's going to give you the information. It's going to tell you what's going to be passed along. Your client's going to get the 50% for the first 3 months. And then for the next 12 months, you're going to get 30% of the fees. And the client is going to be charged directly. Again, you're not going to have to keep track of the client's billing. I think this graph down here is great. It's interesting. It tells you based on whichever subscription that is chosen, how much are you going to get? So what's going to be the discount? What's going to be the rev share portion? Of course, the first 3 months is going to be different because you're at that reduced rate for the subscription. And then also, if you look at payroll, there is the subscription-based price, you'll get the rev share, and then also there is a per employee or contractor. So I'm just going to call it worker fee, that you're going to get a commission. totally new. I'm going to come over here and look inside of Q&A to see if anybody has posted anything. And I'm also going to go ahead and add this image to chat because I think that it's handy. There we go. So Keith, let's see. I think those are answered. Miriam, did they stop the ProAdvisor discount for Desktop Enterprise 2023 for our clients? This is all about QuickBooks Online. So there's nothing listed here that's going to refer to desktops. I'm not really sure what the latest is with desktop. Murph, I'm not sure if that would be a question that you could answer. Penelope, let's see. Can a client be charged from ProAdvisor to RevShare? Sounds like there's only a few. This is only for new clients, correct? And so Penelope, your question is can I do this for existing clients? And if you go back over to where to access, it's only for your new clients is whenever you're going to see this RevShare. And I think that it's stated somewhere here in the rules also that it's part of whenever you're adding a new client. Yeah, add a client. So right now, I don't see any way to access this unless you're adding a client. All right, so I'm going to move back over to slides. And again, you have access to everything that we covered. Murph, before I move on, is there anything else about RevShare that people are asking questions that I could answer live, or did I get them all?
There was one question about, did it have any impact on the ProAdvisor's status, like elite, that, you know, your how your status changes if you go to RevShare versus direct bill?
Gosh, that's a really great question. I have not seen anything that's going to affect your status. So if I come back over here, and again, I'm in a demo file, but what they're referring to is the benefits area. So right here, whenever I'm looking at my benefits, this file has got elite status, and it's based on the points that are calculated for the various different areas. So what are you using? You know, one of the ways that points are collected is based on connected QuickBooks Online files, new QuickBooks Online files, certifications. So I would assume that because you're adding a new client, you're going to get your points for that. So indirectly, yes, if you're using the RevShare program, you're going to be able to also use those points for new QuickBooks Online subscriptions that are attached to you. And this is just talking about what the client benefits are, 1 month free, and then the 50% discount. So it is a better rate than if they go directly to sign up for the subscription themselves. So there's definitely a benefit here. Again, I just copied these little cheat sheets because I liked them. And then we are now to our next poll, Gary. So if you want to launch that next poll, I'll come through some of these Q&A and look while you're answering that. So what percentage of clients' base fees do you receive under the RevShare? And then while you're answering that, it looks like Keith, you did put in some additional information. Thank you. You only get points if you're an accountant user, correct? ProAdvisor benefits. And so the points are based off of, you know, are you certified? So yes, you have to be a ProAdvisor. And then for desktop, only resellers get a commission. And then Keith, you posted in that it's a $45 for Pro or Mac and $75 for Premier. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move on. And the next area is adding payroll through our QBOA. So if you are somebody who is keeping track of the accountant billed and the client billed subscriptions, you might also want to come over and add payroll through your accountant billed subscriptions or even through your client billed subscriptions. So most of the time, what people have done is they've gone over inside of their QuickBooks Online over to the navigation that says payroll, click on that payroll, get started. So that's kind of the most traditional. There is now this new pathway where while you're looking at your subscriptions and you're managing the various subscriptions that are either accountant or client based, then you can add payroll there. And the same things are going to apply. You're going to have to select the plan. You can also then view that you've got that payroll subscription that's added. And in this case, it's under the accountant billed. So that's just another pathway. I'm going to keep moving on through the ecosystem and talk about Business Network. This is something that's very new. And I want to go through some of the nuances because they're not exactly obvious. There's some cool things about the Business Network that I do want to share. One of them is the nuance is that it's B2B. So for right now, ProAdvisors are not part of this Business Network. You might see, if you go and you search the database, you might see your firm, but I'm going to say I have not seen very many accounting firms that are in there. And so it leads me to believe the accounting firms that are in there are not also ProAdvisors. So you can go in and you can search the database, but for right now, this feature is for business to business. What you're able to do is you're able to come over into the Business Network, and it's a pool of QuickBooks Online companies that have agreed to be part of the network so that way they can have direct connections. So once you have a connection, you're going to be able to see all of the updated information. I'm going to take you through some of the setup pieces and then also how you can use it for invoicing and bills. It's kind of cool, but the place to begin is by going over into one of the QuickBooks files. So if I'm going to be going through two different demo files here that I'm going to show you so that way you can see both sides of it. But if you're on the side where you're first adding a vendor or you're adding a customer, the way that you're going to be able to see the Business Network is by adding that new vendor or customer. So you can start to type in the name, and then you're going to see a list that's created. The first time I saw this, it made me think of, back whenever we were importing all of our contacts, our email contacts through Gmail, and then we were able to see all of our Gmail contacts. It feels very similar to being able to search this list, but instead of it being because you've connected an account, this is because all of these businesses opted into being part of the Business Network. You can see there's masked information here. So until you have a connection, you're not actually able to see the credentials here. So if you're wanting to find a phone number, you first need to have that business connection. The way that the connection information is loaded is when you're inside of your QuickBooks Online and you go to your account and settings and you put in your mailing address, your phone number, email address. Those are the pieces of information that it's pulling from. So anytime that those areas are updated, new website, so you update it, new phone number, anytime those things are updated, because they're linked via this Business Network, automatically that updated information is synced over into the vendors or customers that you're connected with through the Business Network. So that's kind of a cool thing to have. So let's go through some of these slides and I'm going to show you it live, but this little QB icon, this little link up there that you can see in green, that's how you know that you've got a connection. So when there's a connection there, that means that you're linked together. And so you've got the little QB icon. And you can see I'm in two different QuickBooks files here. One, I'm in the original place where the link was requested, and then I'm in the other QuickBooks file where I can see that I've got a connection here. So both in this case is one of these businesses is called Rock Castle and the other one's called Trinkets Galore. And so in this case, both of them have accepted to be part of the business network. So their information is being shared back and forth. So they are linked. The thing that's also cool about being linked is that you can import your bills. So if I've got a customer and I am creating an invoice and we're linked, as soon as I create that invoice, it's going to link over to that business connection, and I'm going to be able to see that invoice as a bill. So it will import. And then I can go through and I can look at that imported bill and I can code it as necessary. And then I can go through the bill payment screen. I'm going to go ahead and show you this inside of QuickBooks so that way you kind of get a feel for it. I kind of had to go through it a couple of times so I could get my head wrapped around it. You know, how did the invite get sent out? How do I access it? There's not a portal. So that's, you know, one of the things that you kind of have to play around with is the only way to access the business network is through creating a customer or vendor in a QuickBooks file that has this functionality. So although it is live, it has not been rolled out to all areas. So the first one that I'm going to take you through is, it looks like I might be signed out of this file. So let's see, I'm just going to take you through the one that we're not signed out of. So I'm inside of Rock Castle Construction. And what has happened here is I've got a QuickBooks file that has accepted the invite. So if I come over and I look at my connections, I can see that I've got a connection and an invite has been sent. And then the way that I'm able to view these bills is to come over into these review bills. You know, I am going to go ahead and show you how to do it because I think that it's more beneficial to take you live into the scenario where this is in play. So give me just a second. And while I'm logging in to this other QuickBooks file, Murph, do we have any questions that I can answer while I'm here?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. So I'm not being saved by Q&A. Okay. All right. Almost in. So I'm curious though, how many people have seen this functionality? Because it's not something yet that's live to the ProAdvisor community.
Keith mentioned that he managed to get into it by virtue of listing himself as a vendor. And then he got into the network that way.
Okay.
And and now I see that we have some people responding saying, I've seen it and want to disable it. And here's somebody else that says, I've seen it, but not found a use for it yet, etc. You know, I'll comment that I asked Intuit, the CEO, about this at the very first QuickBooks Connect. I said, y'all are going to ultimately have all these people connected. And when are you going to be able to just directly send bills back and forth and pay people directly back and forth? And the answer was, I think we're working on that. And then the next year, I asked again about it. And they said, well, we are working on that. And I'm glad to see that finally we've gotten to the point that at least we can do part of it. And they say soon they will be to that point of being able to pay directly. And it won't necessarily go through your bank. You'll be able to have a QuickBooks account to QuickBooks account. And as I understand it, one of the options may be that it'll work directly like barter. And so, I think ultimately this has a world of wealth opportunities to it, but it definitely is something that's the wave of the future. And
I agree with you. I mean, it feels like it's not all the way there yet. It does have that sensation of, I want to be able to be connected with my clients. I want them to be able to, I want to be able to search me. So Keith, it sounds like you found a workaround, but I think that ultimately, and I was able to meet with the team to talk about, hey, my QBOA experience is very different than my client experience. And so I did get a chance to share with them some of my feedback and thoughts, and they definitely are interested. They want to know how we're using it or how we want to be able to use it. And, earlier I was sharing where the information is coming from, and that's in this accountant settings. So anytime that you would change any of the business information in accountant settings, that's going to also push into the business network. So let me share with you a scenario where I have got a customer and it's my Rock Castle connection. So here's my link, and you can see that we're connected because of this little icon. And because we're connected, if I come over here and I create a brand new invoice, and I say it's for whatever types of services, I'm just going to create a dollar amount and then save and send. Now, because there is this connection that we have, if I'm over inside of the other QuickBooks file, which is here, then I can refresh and I'm going to be able to see my invoices that have been sent over. So it says I've got 3. If I went over into view these bills, I can see the invoice that I just sent over imported as a bill, and then I can come through and I can code it. So I can put in any type of description. I could put in, what is it that we were doing, whatever types of account that needs to be associated with. I can even make it billable to a customer. I can even split my lines, or I can just save and close. And in this case, I don't need a class. And then I would be able to move directly over into my pay bills screen. And here I would be able to see that bill payment. And from what you just shared, Murph, it sounds like there would be an option coming that might allow us to transfer dollars directly between our business network.
Yes, as I understand, it's going to be between, at least initially, between one QuickBooks account and another QuickBooks account, and then potentially between envelopes in one QuickBooks account and another QuickBooks account. And one of those envelopes might be a barter type envelope to track value segregated.
That's interesting. I mean, I wonder if it's going to be tied to other features like QuickBooks checking. I'm just guessing. I don't really know. It seems like there could be a tie.
Yeah,
So with the slides, this is just walking you through everything that we just did. What I do want to share with you is the QuickBooks payment. So I'm going to move on because I want to make sure I have a chance to share with you some of these other new updates. So with QuickBooks payments, many of you are already familiar with, when to use it, why to use it, but there is, let me see, there we go. There is new training that is going to take you through these details. So what are the benefits? What does it look like whenever you're getting started? What does the Go Payments app look like? I know that many of you are familiar with the QuickBooks Online app, but there is a separate Go Payments app. And inside that app, it does have different functionality. So when you go to set up, you do use your regular QuickBooks Online credentials, and it'll walk you through Bluetooth and enabling. And then inside of the Go Payments app, there's different icons than what we're used to in QuickBooks Online. So there's a couple of nuances here. And if you want to be able to, for example, do what they call a quick invoice, you're not going to be able to pull in the account that you want to tie that invoice to. You can create the invoice while you're in the Go Payments app, but then later on, you would want to go back over into QuickBooks Online and you would want to adjust that account, because using the Go Payments app to create this quick invoice is going to tie it to a generic Go Payments account. There's a couple of other things that whenever you're using instant deposits, there's a fee for it, but if you're using QuickBooks Checking, again, time back to QuickBooks Checking, there's not a fee. Many of you are already familiar with how to create a sales receipt, but something that is new is the Enable AutoPay. What I'm hearing is that people are kind of sometimes confused how to get AutoPay started. So if you are somebody who has Go Payments or QuickBooks Payments, and you're wanting to enable the AutoPay, the only thing you have to do is start with a reoccurring transaction. So AutoPay is enabled through using the reoccurring transactions inside of QuickBooks. So once you create a brand new reoccurring transaction and you send over the email for your customer, what it looks like for them is that they have a little button that they can say they want to set up AutoPay. And then once they have the AutoPay information added, then they're able to not need to open up these invoices every single time. Instead, they've authorized all invoices to use the payment information that they put in. So one of the differences here with AutoPay is you as the provider never have to see the customer's bank information. So that's one of the benefits for security, is that you don't have to have access to bank or credit card details. So some of you might do sales receipts because you do have the customer payment information. But if you've got a customer who doesn't want to share those details with you, here's a way for you to still be able to cut down on some of the bookkeeping because you're using the AutoPay and your people are putting the information automatically. There's also new training that's going to go through what are some of the benefits of QuickBooks Payments, which includes the automated bookkeeping. So when you're using QuickBooks Payments and there is a payment that is received, then there will be a posting to the accounts receivable, then to undeposited funds, and then ultimately whenever that deposit has cleared as a batch, then QuickBooks will actually create that batch deposit for you. You will also see it over in the bank register. There's a piece that is often missed. There's a expense transaction. So if you are using QuickBooks Payments and you're thinking about the way that the fees are collected, you know that it's on a per transaction basis, but it's like, how does that get captured? And that expense is actually posted automatically if you are using QuickBooks Payments. And then you would actually even see that bank feed match over inside of QuickBooks for both the deposit total and then also the fee. I'm going to say that this is the great time for the next poll. So which of these can users not do from QuickBooks Go Payment app? Ooh. I didn't go through some of these details here. So again, this is for CPE. You don't have to necessarily get it right. But I'm going to take a peek. All right, and then Gary, is it okay if I count us down on the poll?
Sure thing.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. and you cannot create a new product or service. That is true. You are not going to be able to edit a reoccurring sales receipt either inside of the Go Payments. So let's keep going. ProAdvisor training update. Here's where I was talking about there's new training, and then there's also this new pathway. So if you are somebody who wants to go over into the ProAdvisor training and you want to cover a particular area, soon there'll be a search. Right now, there's not a search, but you still can create a customized pathway. There's probably, it feels like 50 questions that it asks you, but it really does get specific into what are you wanting to learn? What's your knowledge base so far? Which areas are important to you? For example, do you want to know about payroll, or is that something that you're not interested in right now, but you want to learn more about bank feeds? So that customized path, it will pull out of training all of the areas that you've said is important to you, and then it'll start to create a roadmap for you to move through training. So that's pretty cool. And here's an example of a roadmap. So if somebody wanted to be able to manage the QuickBooks Online, this all looks like it's based on payroll. So pulling in all of the different areas that are related to the topic of interest, it's going to walk you through step by step what's the order of training that you need to take. It's independent of all of the modules and lessons that are inside of the traditional training. But if you're somebody who wants to go through training as a course and you want to know some of the courses that are new and available, QuickBooks Payments training is brand new. So this would be an area where you could go in and you could go through the entire training. You could go through all of the different call outs there, how to use the Go Payments app, for example. What are those different areas that you can update? The other thing that is brand new that's coming is app advisory training. So very, very soon, you are going to have apps training. And I can say that the training is good. It's going to walk you through app stacks. It's going to walk you through some of the basics of how do you run an app advisory firm? Are you somebody who just wants to add on apps as a service inside of your existing business, but not really sure exactly how to get started? There's going to be some information for each of you there. There is also an upcoming VCon that's going to include this apps training in it. And it is March 21st and 22nd. So that's coming up and right around the corner. Before I move over to our recap, Murph, are there any questions that?
No, but I was going to have you go back to a certification page. And I was going to mention something odd that we discovered in the certification hub. So people, if you're looking for certificates in the certification hub, when you go to an area that you've completed, there will be a green button and it says download certificate. If you click it once, what you'll get is a download that has nothing but the actual badge. You actually have to click it twice to get your certificate. And I know this because over the weekend, we dealt with about 25 people who needed to provide credentials to move on in the top 100 process. And they had to produce copies of certificates. And they would all go out there and try to get those certificates. And they'd say, all it is produce a badge. And so then we played around with it. And I found out that you have to, for some reason, click it twice to get it to produce your certificate. So that's an oddity, a bug for some reason.
Well, so double click.
So double click, yeah.
Double click. Yeah, that's an interesting little oddity. I appreciate you calling that out. Well, Murph, it's always a pleasure having a opportunity to be in a presentation space with you. And it's always a joy to have the Insightful Accountant crew that joins us. So thank you to everybody who has joined us today. And Gary, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Liz. We're going to post up one more poll real quickly. This is back on our sponsor, Rewind. If you'd like to hear from them, just say yes. We'll forward your information over to them and you'll hear from them shortly. One thing, since Murph did mention the top 100, I did want to let anyone know who has submitted to be part of this process. We've got one thing we're waiting to kind of get connected with on the back end. So you should receive an email from me or from Insightful Accountant, if not today, tomorrow. Either way, you'll get it tomorrow. We hope this one connection will be done, but if it's not the end of the world. But we'd like to have it done. So don't panic. Nothing's gone out saying that you're eligible to apply. That will go out either, like I said, later this afternoon or tomorrow. So there you go. Liz, thank you so much. Liz, do we know topic for April yet? I don't think we do.
Murph, I think I'll pass it over to you because you were talking about.
Yeah, we had a few different things, so we didn't settle on anything. So we'll just leave it at that. So again, Liz, thank you so much. Always a wealth of knowledge that you share. I know people are very grateful for you taking time to do that. So everyone, thank you so much for showing up, and we will see you all very soon.
Bye, everyone.